if the scene was to adopt something like, I know you work really hard, like tirelessly, to make sure that you provide the most prestigious event that the world has to offer. I know you that you put so much work behind the scenes to not only like in your craft, but to deliver what you believe dancers deserve
Yeah.
for doing what they're doing. Like, how would you like, do you feel like there are some changes that are coming that'll benefit the scene in the future? Like, is there anything that you have in the pipes or anything that you're thinking, okay, I would like to see it go in this direction?
No. Right now, I think that we have to kind of settle into the rules and regs that we have. We have to kind of start having discussions on how to take it to the next level. The problem is that to produce a better product, let's say competitively, it has to be structured. The road to championship status needs to be somewhat more structured.
Right.
And not just on a local level, but on a national and world level. And for that to happen, you have to have a lot of people agree. And
right.
it's a tough thing. I don't know if I'm ever going to see that in my lifetime. I mean, with so much. I mean, I've been in this fight for so long. I mean, 20-something years ago when we first introduced it, I had gotten so much slack for it, man. You know, I was ruining salsa. You know, it's going to lose its flavor. You know, you're going to make it overly technical. Why can't it be all of it? Why can't it be all of it? I don't understand that. You know what I mean? Why is that?
Mm.
You know, when I look at a Karen or Ricardo, I see a very flavorful, very disciplined, very powerful, very technical couple.
Mm.
I don't see a couple that doesn't have flavor. Do you?
Yeah. Of course not.
Adrian and Anita, another fantastic couple. Kareem and Raphael, another fantastic couple. I mean, I can go on. And these couples are all couples that came from the competitive environment. And they go back out to the Congress world. And guess what? They're closing the shows because they are who they are.
Yeah.
So, but instead of embracing that and saying, okay, this is working, let's keep going there, I get this pullback. This, you know, don't make it so structured. Don't make it this. Don't make it that. You know, don't put them in a box. Come on, man. You know, you get to one competition here and then the rules changes when you get to another competition. And I judge in a lot of places. So now I got to read their rules.
Yeah.
I got to read shit they made up, you know, and they made it up from what? 5, 6, 7 years of experience based on my 40-something years experience. And me and some other people that I have to sit down because I don't make the call. I make suggestions and I listen to other suggestions and I talk to people that I believe can help the community. I sit down. I spend a lot of time talking to Tito. I spend a lot of time talking to a lot of different people.
Mm.
You know, to see how we can make it better.
Yeah.
Right? So, you know, yeah.
Did Tito and Tamara ever compete?
Tito has. Tito competed. Tamara, I don't know. Never really asked her. Can't remember. I know that Tito has.
He does a fantastic workshop when he travels internationally about the history of salsa, something like a project that he's been working on for a long time.
He's constantly upgrading it, adding to it.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I really enjoyed it. I've watched it a couple of times now.
We need a historian. We need someone to kind of put everything in perspective, you know? You know, everybody believes this, you know, you have to give people a broader understanding. Salsa didn't just come from one place or one individual.
Yeah, of course.
This is a, you know, consensus of several different places, opinions, and he does a really great job doing it.
It's a fantastic presentation. I highly recommend it to anyone that has the opportunity to watch it because it's great.
Yeah, it gets lengthier every time.
That's good though, right? He's consolidating what he's learned.
It's interesting. You can actually sit there. It's interesting. I could sit there for forever. Me and him talk all the time, you know. And then I'll mention something. He says, "Oh man, you know, who's the name and who's that?" Because you know, as an older guy, I kind of don't think it's important because,
Yeah,
you
so
know,
you have the information.
but it's up here and I spill
Yeah.
it out. And sometimes vice versa. You know, I ask him, where did you get that from? Oh, okay, that's interesting. Like I have a Pachanga book that's like a softback, you know, that was printed in 1960. And it was done by a guy named John Lucchese. And he wrote it. And John Lucchese is an old dance enthusiast. He was a lawyer. And in the 70s, he nurtured me, helped me, because he's the one that originally made me aware of Augie and Margo, that eventually became my mentors and teachers and stuff. But
I remember you saying in your last
yeah,
interview.
John Lucchese were very instrumental in introducing me to ballroom, introducing me to all of the mambo dances from the Palladium era, because they were still around in the 70s. You know, when I was growing up and learning stuff. So I had that book and I showed it to Tito and he went ballistic. He says, when are you going to mail it to me? When are you going to mail it to me? I want that book and I want to see it, because it actually has pictures of the feet, you know, and it has,
Wow.
has the history. Well done book.
You still have it?
I have it, yes. Of course.
Wow.
Let me show it to you. Hold on.
Oh my God. You guys are in for a treat. This is like a piece of history. Published in the 60s.
Look at this.
Pachanga, Pachanga. Wow.
And then you get these old pictures of people dancing.
This is out of the book.
Yeah, this is a pamphlet. It's a small book. It's in pieces now. Look.
Wow.
It's an actual book.
You said published in the 60s?
Yes. This was
Wow,
published by
incredible.
John A. Lucchese. It was 50 cents, the book. Yeah.
I give you a
Some of it,
dollar for it.
I mean, some of the paper is so old that it breaks.
Wow.
You know? And that's the thing, you know, a lot of people talk about Pachanga and Boogaloo and all that nonsense, but you know, it's just these dances. Yeah, I'm looking for the year, and I'm pretty sure it was the year I stated. Oh, look, copyright 1961.
Wow.
Yeah, it's right here.
That's
Here in the
incredible.
bottom. 1961 in the bottom.
Wow.
Yeah. So I keep all of this stuff. You know, I collect. So I like to collect everything I can, so I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when I watch people, you know, teach Pachanga and they're doing, you know, that nonsense, they have no clue. But they do their thing, right?
Yeah.
And that's another thing. Instead of really reading up on it and finding out how far back it goes, how far back does that music go? You know, is the Boogaloo really like a big thing, or was it just a little fad? You know, the Boogaloo was like a fad, like the twist.
Right.
Yeah.
I could be, please correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding of Boogaloo is that it's Latin music with English lyrics.
Yes, that's
like
one aspect of it.
That's one defining characteristic. Yeah. And that came about after, I think it was in the 60s, when all of the Latin music was sort of being ostracized a little bit because of the conflict between America and Cuba. So it became less and less fashionable.
No, it was musicians just assimilating each other, man. It was learning from each other, experimenting. You know, that's all that was. Joe Cuba was one of those. I mean, you have a lot of musicians at the time. They were, you know, be doing mambo here, and then they go down the block on 52nd Street, and they got jazz. Guess what? Then you got Latin jazz. They came out of that. You understand? It's that whole thing about mixing up and creating, and you know, it's what it is. That's how that comes about.
And so that's how English, like, lyrics were fused with Latin music.
Right, because you have a lot of New Yorkers. You have a lot of New Yorkers. We were speaking English. Yeah. You know, a lot of us.
But then at home, you guys have like a totally Hispanic culture and experience.
It depends what generation you are.
Right.
Like my mother came from the island. My father came from the island. My grandmother came from the island. So when I was growing up, I heard mostly Spanish.
Yeah.
And I got the English from the school. You understand? in the street. But you know, then you have generations that don't speak Spanish in their house anymore because they were born maybe earlier, like a decade earlier, you know, and they're like second generation, third generation. They speak mostly English, and they have some Spanish. You understand? It just does that. I mean, the society in which we grew up in at the time, you couldn't walk around the streets speaking Spanish. You had, it wasn't like you got, I mean, in our neighborhood, when I was growing up, it wasn't the majority of Latinos.
Yeah.
We had Italians, we had Black, African American, and then you had us, you know, and then you had something else. But primarily, I remember my neighborhood primarily being Italian.
Wow.
You know, so we weren't speaking Spanish when I walk into that store.
Yeah.
And they didn't have a lot of bodegas, you know. They didn't have those stores, Spanish stores. They didn't have any of that. Not when I was growing up in the 60s and the 70s. Then later on, of course, it all changed, you know. But no. So a lot of the music reflects the society in which we live in at that time.
That's such an interesting piece of history that I'm so grateful to learn, because you're someone that lived it. You were there.
Yeah, my experience was that. You know, don't forget, I was trying to be white. You know, I say that in a nice way, and I'm not trying to. But, you know, when I was growing up, you know, we still had the thing that Puerto Ricans had a switchblade. You know, the persona was, you know, West Side Story. You know what I mean? You know, that kind of nonsense. I mean, so, you know, I'm walking around, I say, oh, shit, you know, I'm trying to get a job. How do I get this job? You know, so I didn't speak Spanish. I spoke English as best as I could. I tried to get rid of whatever accent I had. Mannerisms from the ghetto, I tried to get rid of that so I can get a job dancing. And as a reflect, you know, it's sort of like white privilege, you know, so to speak. I had my own experience. So I benefited from that because I'm a little more fair-skinned. So I went into a place and I will get a television show, I will get this, I will get that. The problem with that is that you lose your identity, you know? So in my teens, I was chasing that because I had dreams of Broadway, off-Broadway, movies, TV. I had those dreams. As I got older, I gave less of a, you know, I became, you know, I became who I always was, me. You know, so I decided that I wanted to work within the Latin community, and I wanted to do things to better, you know, to better myself and the community I live in. You know, I was really excited when the whole Congress thing happened. I mean, when the Congress thing happened, that was the best thing. I mean, because that really gave us an industry in which we can, you know, as a dancer, as a musician, as where it gave us a place, it gave us a home, and then you could excel there. You know, as long as we have it, we grow the industry properly. From a Latino perspective, you know, because salsa is all inclusive. We try to include everyone in the world. But from my perspective, you know, this was home. It was my music that I heard when I was growing up. It was my dancing that I've done, you know, and this was my opportunity to come in as a senior participant and contribute, you know. So I brought in the knowledge I had, and I started to spread that around and do what I do. And I've always done that. You know, as a kid, even when I established a dance company, my whole company, I was 20 years old. They were all 17 and 18, and they were from the Bronx like me. You know, so I've always kind of pushed the people with me along. I open up a door. I said, come on, the door's open. Let's go. Let's get in here. You know, I've always did that.